everyone. Really excited to have you join us today. My name is Maria Anguiano, and I'm the Executive Vice President of the Learning Enterprise at ASU, and also a member of the Board of Regents at the University of California. I'm really excited to moderate a discussion today about the unique role that research universities play in shaping the future of our society. And I can't imagine a better conversation than the three people that we have with us today. President Michael Crow, who you've just finished hearing about, Chancellor of UCSD, Pradeep Khosla, and Shellye Archambeau, who's a seasoned Silicon Valley tech executive and Fortune 500 board of director member, including Verizon, who's one of our ASU partners. So thank you all for being here. We're going to jump in because we have a lot to cover today. Pradeep, and I'll start with you and Michael. Both of you have led massive transformation at your universities over a long period of time in the growth of students, millions of dollars of growth of research, and dozens of industry collaborations. So can you help the audience understand what has that meant for your communities? What has that meant for how they've evolved given these efforts?
You're first.
You want me to go? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. For the first time, he let somebody else go.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you, Maria. And good morning, everybody. And thank you for that question. So let me put this in perspective. So UC San Diego is an $8 billion top-line institution. So independent of research, any institution of that size in about a $30-ish billion economy is going to have a very positive impact on the economy, just based on the size of the number of people. So we are the largest employer outside of government in San Diego. Our research portfolio is $1.74 billion, which by itself has a significant multiplier effect. So you can see that San Diego, without UC San Diego, will not be the biotech hub that it is. So we are the driver of life sciences, biosciences, engineering, technology, communications in San Diego. And I think it has meant a lot for the community, at least from my point of view. The economically, it's meant a lot. But there is a class of community, what we think of as underserved communities. If you ask them, they'll say, wait a second, you're up on the Mesa, you don't care about us. My kids cannot go to UC San Diego. And these are people, brown and black people. And when I got here, I realized that that was a community also that we had to touch, and touch positively. A decade later, we have significantly expanded our access to those communities based on, not just based on socioeconomic status. And now those communities will tell you that we are a destination campus for them for art and culture in addition to education and healthcare. And I think that's what a public institution needs to be. It's more than economic development for the knowledge economy. It is also a development for the underserved people. And most communities, half the communities are underserved. The country, half the country is underserved. We know that by definition. Let's look at the median income. So that's what it means, and it's just a broad view of how to think about a university in a public setting.
Yeah, I think what I would add is that the third part of our charter focuses on the university taking responsibility for outcomes, something universities usually take responsibility for their own outcomes. In our case, we're trying to take responsibility for broader outcomes, including socioeconomic success. That means us performing research at the most intensity that we can, which we do, massive activities, all kinds of things. It means us being a part of, for instance, trying to drive the new semiconductor economy forward in Metro Phoenix, which is taking off in very significant ways, and we're working on that. But it also means us making certain that we're involved in breaking down an old barrier that most universities have stayed away from, which is, are there things that we're doing, things that we have, learning assets that we have, ways in which we can teach, which if we disaggregate it from the academic core of the institution, what we call the academic enterprise of ASU, can you make it available to broader audiences of learners? And so Maria has a team of over 120 people in a startup mode where we're basically designing the functionality of the university to also work as a learning enterprise. Basically, whatever you need, whatever learning asset, learning tool, learning method, learning pathway, anything you need at any point in your life, not just when you are a college student, and even if you were unable to be a college student, how do we find a way to just plug people in through various types of devices that allow you, I mean devices in the broadest sense, social devices, technical devices, social system, socio-technical system devices. How do you make all of that happen? Because what we have to find a way to do is to make certain that as UCSD and ASU and other universities build these unbelievable technologies, they will be unbelievably disruptive to the workforce. And if they are unbelievably disruptive to the workforce, then we're going to see additional rises in resentment towards those that are haves and those that, and that means have access to a great university education, have access to a great engineering degree, et cetera, et cetera. So on the one hand, we've grown engineering from 6,000 students to 30,000 students in the last 10 years. But on the other hand, Maria's assignment is to find a way where we could get 1 million other learners learning from the same things, but in a completely different way. So that's kind of the way that we're approaching this notion of the new economy.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. And Shellye, I'm curious from your industry perspective, what advice would you have for companies to plug into these ecosystems?
Yeah, well, first of all, the value that companies can gain in partnering with universities is significant. Studies show that over the last 20 years, companies in general have actually reduced their early stage research investments. Well, frankly, it's in the early stage research that the most innovation typically comes. And so you just heard hundreds of millions of dollars being invested by universities on the research. So partnering in a way that is not transactional. Many companies will monitor. They'll try to see, okay, what's going on? If I find something interesting, I swoop in, right, kind of take it. Transactional is not really going to get you the full set of value that you can get in partnering. It's really about creating collaborative, strategic partnerships with universities. And you do that by actually investing. Look at how to co-fund initiatives that are in areas of scientific problems that maybe your company is interested in, right? Or look at ways in which you can actually partner to provide maybe co-mentoring your engineering students, right? And postdocs, et cetera. There are a lot of ways to actually work in an integral way over time with universities. Verizon, for instance, has been partnering with ASU for, over a decade in a very meaningful way. And therefore, you get to see what's coming, what are the trends, and how to incorporate your overall strategies, leveraging the hundreds of millions of dollars being spent by these universities. So I encourage companies and organizations to truly get engaged. Don't just monitor, but actually make a commitment and get engaged for the long term.
Thanks, Shellye. And kind of to keep on that conversation, Pradeep, you're building a 1 million square foot facility right in the middle of campus for industry collaboration. Can you talk why that was important for UCSD? What are you trying to accomplish?
Yes, so UCSD has been very fortunate. We have like a 1,200-acre campus, 43,000 students. And one of the things that I always thought really makes a difference, both in the quality of research, in the quality of opportunities for the students, and the quality of economic growth in the community, is a tight relationship between industry, and that's what Shellye was talking about, so I just want to build on that. So this tight relationship for a place like UC San Diego, I can say, look, I don't care what a company is, could be New York, could be in the Bay Area, could be in LA, we're going to work with everybody. But there's some merit in having a cluster of these companies literally on campus where you can build very tight relationships. And given our strength in biotech, so we are going to build a 1 million square foot facility, public-private partnership, where we will bring companies, small, medium, large, to create an ecosystem literally on our campus. It's not the only ecosystem. It'll complement Sorrento Mesa. It'll complement a whole bunch of other systems in San Diego. But this would be curated to really work very well with the faculty and the research on campus. So that's really important. The crass side of this conversation is that I get a land lease payment, which then I invest back into the educational enterprise. Otherwise, the land is actually just sitting there unmonetized. So there's a crass argument to this, and there's an intellectual argument to this. And in a bizarre way, both of them kind of point to the same direction, which is making UC San Diego better, more access, more scholarships for undergrads, and just more diversity.
Pradeep, that crass argument, we have to use those crass arguments to fund our entire university, so.
Me too. Me too. My regent is sitting here, so.
We have to find money wherever it is, so.
So going into what ASU is thinking about for the future, we have the CHIPS and Science Act, a tremendous opportunity, but also challenges to fully live into it and implement. And I'm curious, President Crow, can you talk about what ASU is doing to create the army of engineers and skilled workforce that we're going to need, or need right now, actually?
Well, we're trying to do a number of things. The most important thing that we need to do to make our country more competitive against the rise of other competitors, which I'm a big believer, net makes the world a better place. The more competitors we have, the better. The more competition we have, the better. The harder the race to win, the faster you will run. And so we need all of that. So for us, we're really focusing massive amounts of energy, including with some of the help of the people at this meeting, in eliminating calculus as a barrier to wanting to be an engineer. Eliminating math, we're working in this direction. It's hard for us to do these things, but we're really working very, very hard to be able to do that. That plus other things that we've done in engineering, changing the structure, changing the culture, changing the names, restructuring the faculty, the design of the faculty, the design of the programs has allowed us to grow engineering from 6,000 to 30,000 students, allowed us to produce online engineering degrees fully accredited by ABET, but even that is insufficient. And so TSMC, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, is spending $40 billion on a new foundry in North Phoenix right now. It's under construction. It's about halfway built. We're working with them and all of their supply chain companies. Intel, also in Phoenix, has then now doubled down with a $20 billion investment. Samsung, a $5 billion investment, all in Phoenix. All of those are huge workforce challenges, not just workforce in the simplistic sense, but workers that would go to work in these places and spin out of these places and make new things happen and develop new things. And so the approach that we're taking is scale. So scale engineering, scale our programs, build new technologies. We have 7 innovation campuses that we have underway right now. We've got hundreds and hundreds of interactions that are going on with all of these companies. And then we've launched 7 new science and technology centers. The purpose of these centers is to help train new engineers, scientists, conceptualizers, programmers, artists, dreamers, all of these things, but in areas of industry that don't even exist right now. And so we're working on all of these fronts as this new push, if you all are not paying attention to this, the Chips and Science Act, the Infrastructure Act, and the last element of the Budget Act that were passed recently, there's more new resources for investment in American competitiveness there than since the end of World War II in terms of the concentration. We just submitted, for instance, a $1 billion plus carbon capture technology proposal for a carbon capture technology that we have, a tree that we built, a mechanical chemical tree, to build 10,000 of these trees on a geological formation in New Mexico, capture the carbon, store the carbon, then industrially reuse the carbon, and helping to create an entirely new economy. All of these things require more and more and more capable individuals. And so what we've tried to do at the university is to create a place where all of these things can be done. Starting when you're 17 or 18 years old, when you show up, you're involved in all these things. And so that's the way that we're working.
Yeah. And Shellye, as an employer perspective, do you think universities are doing enough? What are challenges or gaps that you're seeing in the workforce as folks are coming out of their university degree? And what advice would you have for these chancellors, presidents here?
Right. The key thing is workforce readiness, right? Whether or not, with all that's going on with innovation, it's always a challenge, meaning innovation moves so fast, Silicon Valley, moves so fast that the skills that you need, the experience that you need, it's really difficult for whether it's universities or anyone to actually keep up with those new skills. And just some quick data points. Gallup polls showed that only 11% of employers feel that students coming out of universities are workforce ready. Now, that is a STEM issue, which President Crow just spent time talking about the overall investments, so we're trying to build that up. But it's also a general, what I'll call soft skill statement as well, because 44% of employers feel that students aren't even ready from an overall soft skill standpoint. When I say soft skill, it's problem solving, it's communication, it's dependability, it's the ability to actually analyze, to learn and apply, right? All of those skills that are so important. So we still have a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of making sure that we are workforce ready. But I'll tell you, what I'm encouraged by is hearing the kinds of things that UC San Diego and ASU are doing, because frankly, it's almost impossible to know today what skills are going to be needed 8 years or 10 years from now. Right now, AI is all the buzz. Everybody's talking about AI, et cetera. Well, there are new jobs forming that didn't exist. We're going to need people who know how to actually question and moderate AI to be able to use it in a way that's productive. We're going to need people who know how to actually do quality management around AI, very different than doing quality management of code, right? There's a whole set of new jobs and roles that no one's been trained for, that no one's experienced. So the key is we've got to be adaptive, we've got to be flexible, but I'm going to go back to the partnership. Universities and companies really need to engage with each other so that we're understanding where the needs are, what the pulls are. Because frankly, no one can predict what's required. So the key is we want to give students, right, and new graduates as strong a foundation as possible so they can learn and adapt. And that's what's exciting about what Maria's doing in terms of just the ongoing education, because education isn't once and done. We're way past that. You can't learn something in 4 years when you're 22, graduate, and then when you're 40, still be relevant in the marketplace. It just isn't happening. So all of this, to me, is quite exciting because I think as universities start making these kinds of investments, we're actually going to see a much better workforce if we can truly, truly drive that employer-university relationship.
So Shellye, here's an example. So Verizon is a Series A investor in a new company called Dreamscape Learn, which is a joint venture between a company in Los Angeles called Dreamscape Immersive and Arizona State University, which has built a virtual reality technology. Nothing new about that, nothing new about virtual reality. There's something new about a pedagogically designed virtual reality system, which can give a 40% enhancement to a student learning biology as an undergraduate or a high school student in their laboratory environment, which Verizon saw that, sees the potential from that, was involved in helping ASU to develop what we were doing, and then became an investor in that particular company. And not as an ad, but if you want to experience that, you can do that here. Because Dreamscape Learn is set up here, but Verizon specifically has been involved since the very beginning of getting that project going. So.
Exactly. Long-term strategic partnerships, really critical.
All right. You've talked about innovation, chatbots, AI. There's a lot of people here in this audience who are creating new companies, creating new educational experiences, some with the thought that perhaps current higher ed is not doing enough or is failing in this space. Do you, my question to you, did you see them as competitors, as threats? How do you see them plugging into the ecosystem? Pradeep, do you want to start with that?
Me again? Oh, okay. I think I would say neither or all of the above, right? I think they are not threats for sure, right? But they are threats in some sense, in a good way, because there's a whole lot of same old embedded into the educational system. So you need some threats to come and do a wake-up call. You need some competition to like sharpen the skills of everybody around, right? And you also need partnerships to really make progress in this whole ecosystem. So the country has about 4,000 universities, and they're all very different. They're not the same. So ASU and UC San Diego, you might say, oh, they're both public institutions. Yes and no. They have similarities and they have different personalities and they have differences. And we have our own ways of thinking about how we want to be impacting our communities and people. So I think all of these companies, you'll see you fit with some, you don't fit with others, but this is a great country. I mean, there's a place for everybody out here. Most of you will succeed, some of you will not, but then you will start something different. Then you'll come back and try to sell me the same thing again. Same people selling me something different in 5 years, right? So I'm actually very bullish about the economy out here in terms of ed tech. I think the following is not going to happen. I think the likelihood that ed tech would replace the traditional 4-year residential education is zero.
I agree with that.
You might reduce it a little bit, but you will not replace the traditional 4-year education. And I think this is the mental block that people in Silicon Valley need to get over. I mean, it's not going to disrupt. Universities are not going away. Trust me, we are here to stay. Right? But we will change. And I think everything that you guys are doing will force us and put us in the right direction. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, can I just add to that? I agree that universities are here to stay. I do believe that it is competitive in terms of what we're seeing, and I think it's being driven by the fundamental gap we just talked about, workforce readiness. Everybody's trying to solve that. There's initiatives underway at companies to actually reduce the number or reclassify jobs, if you will, to eliminate the college education requirement. I mean, IBM has reclassified almost 40% of their jobs. So this is a real initiative. And what they're doing instead is certificate programs, right? Alternate. They're either offering or they're partnering with companies in terms of creating, et cetera. They're doing it because they see a problem and a gap.
Right.
What I believe is we're going to see, again, this competition is great because universities, who are the experts, actually, in how to educate at scale, et cetera, I see partnerships coming. I think universities will change and evolve. I do think we'll see fewer universities. I don't think they're going away. I think we'll see the ones that are innovative, adaptable, and actually partnering in the marketplace. They're going to thrive, they're going to grow, and they're going to expand. But I do think that there will be some that actually won't make it because they won't be adaptable, they won't be changing. The needs are evolving, but I see the competition is actually a good thing. It's like anything else. You see a problem, a gap starts to be filled, then the experts who actually know how to take it, scale it, grow it, right? They take that and move forward, and I think that's what universities
So I
will
have
do.
an observation there. So I think you're right. The unfortunate part is scale may be important for IT industry in Silicon Valley, not necessarily good for universities. A lot of universities that are going away are small, boutique liberal arts institutions. And there is a class of students. Michael talked about the way you want to learn, the way you can learn, the way you should learn. There is a class of students for whom these universities are important, and they're all going away because they don't have the scale. They cannot be charging $70,000 tuition and have only 2,000 students and pay the faculty, right? So that's the unfortunate part. I think this is where you can help, where you can allow these smaller institutions to be in business while offering similar quality education at lower price points because of the technology and ed tech. And I think we are not seeing that at all. We are seeing that in large institutions like ours, but not in small liberal arts institutions.
Michael, I know ASU has a pretty unique perspective in working with ed tech companies. Can you give us an insight of how you think about it?
Well, Phil Regier, who's the CEO of Ed Plus here at ASU, sitting right here at the front table, and he and I were in a discussion yesterday where we sort of calculated that just from our interactions in the 14 years that we've helped launch this summit, since the small few dozen of people that got together in Scottsdale, we've built 500 relationships, give or take, with companies helping us in our learning technology space, in our educational technology space, and all the other things that we're doing. Those relationships have then allowed us to go from, when we started this process, about 45,000 degree-seeking learners to 173,000 degree-seeking learners, and to produce better graduates and higher rates of success and higher rates of capability to go into the workforce than we've ever imagined before, while at the same time allowing our faculty, we don't have a medical school, to move up above $800 million in research expenditures in non-medical areas, which is a very large number, and to do all those things at the same time. So our productivity, our creativity is hugely influenced and hugely impacted by these partnerships that we have put in place. This last one that I mentioned, that Verizon has been an investor in, this Dreamscape Learn technology, we saw more learning outcome enhancements from that technology being applied to undergraduate biology laboratories than any 10 or 15 other technologies that we've ever used. And so we're also seeing massive changes in how these technologies can help us advance our pedagogy. So the learning technologies and educational technologies and tools, and we have a multilingual chatbot that screens mental health requests from our student body in 12 languages, which allows us, with students from 158 countries, to be more responsive, which allows us to be more engaged. We could have never imagined any of these things or done any of these things, and we certainly couldn't have done them on our own. What's happened with our shop, what we call enterprise technology, our information folks and our people in our unit called Ed Plus, which are basically knowledge navigators, knowledge creators, knowledge synthesizers. These people have been massively empowered to transform the 5,600 faculty members that we have, who are probably producing as much as 15,000 faculty members may have been required to produce in the past. And so for us, it's been a huge, huge, huge transformation. And, oh, by the way, on the side, with the tools that we have 65,000 K-12 learners taking advantage of the same technologies that we never could have reached before in the way that we're operating.
Maria, can I just make a point that I want to make sure everybody's heard when they hear in terms of Chancellor Khosla and President Crow speak. And that is one around inclusive. A lot of what drives the strategies at both universities is that they are actually trying to be inclusive of as many people and reach as many people and provide access to as many people. I do think we're going to see some interesting dynamics because most universities focus on being exclusive. Exclusive. And by definition, when you're exclusive, you are restrictive, right? You are limited. You are not scaled. And so there's a whole dynamic here that I really encourage everyone, whether you're coming at it from the business standpoint or the education standpoint, to really think about. But inclusivity is not just one of who, but it's the reach we had on stage, right? Africa, what's happening around the world. I just think education in general and the way we need to think about it, if we think about it as inclusive and reach and scale, we're going to see so much more in terms of innovation, impact, and outcome effect.
Yeah.
I think it's really important. I mean, I think expanding access is by far the single most important thing a university should be doing. And a lot of the small elite private institutions are very limited in their ability to expand access. And the ranking system actually encourages that.
Like the ones we came from.
Thank you.
Carnegie, Carnegie Mellon and Columbia University were two places that they don't scale.
But now, if you listen to me talk, you would never think that I spent 30 years at a private institution. Nor would he. Right?
Let's continue this inclusivity theme, since that was going to be my next theme, which is, as we transform the economy, putting inclusivity and equity at the center is going to be key. So we end up with an inclusive economy, an equitable economy for all. What are specific efforts that you're taking, Pradeep, on that effort?
So from my perspective, Maria, I'm trying to change the fundamental culture and thinking at UC San Diego and also in the UC system, which is the following. If you think about undergraduate education, everybody wants to recruit the best student. I think it's fundamentally a mistake. Undergraduate education should be egalitarian. It should be a satisficing strategy where anybody who's capable of doing coursework at UC San Diego should be allowed to be admitted and do it. And there's no two ways about this. To say that I'm only going to pick the best and the rest are going to be left behind is a disaster for the economy. So that's undergrad only. That's undergrad. If you think about PhD education, there you should pick the best of the best because now you're talking about building new knowledge, creating new knowledge, and you got to work with the best. And you should pick the best of the best from all over the world, not just from California, not just from the U.S. And the U.S. system is very, very good about it. So changing this culture is not easy. For me to go to my faculty and say, or my admissions people and say, for undergraduate education, draw like a line and everybody above is acceptable, is not an acceptable statement. They want to work only with the best undergrads. And I think that fundamentally limits access and limits opportunity for a whole lot of population in the country. So, and we have changed that system. So we get 160,000 applications, number 2 most applied to place in the country. And we only pick like 9,000 students. And we are trying to, and Maria as a regent in the UC system, instill that philosophy all over UCs and hopefully all public institutions. Literally, that is the only way to build this country to be a greater country.
So that's the very argument that we use. In fact, our admission standards are the admission standards of the University of California from the summer of 1950, on purpose, by design. And then there's no way to do this, however, unless you use technology that allows you to be able to scale. And so we admit every single student who meets those qualifications and have to be prepared in one way or another, either online or on campus, to take them and to help them to be able to be successful at that undergraduate level. When we get more institutions capable or interested in doing that, then this cultural division now between those that were able to go to college, those that were able to go to great colleges, and those that weren't will begin to subside, because right now it's moving up to a crescendo. You've got people very, very angry, very, very upset, and very, very resentful because they don't have access to the best. And so there is a way to give them access to the best, and that's the system that we need.
So 2 things, not only access, Michael, also affordability. So I think you need to manage, and what Michael is saying manages affordability and access simultaneously. Because of what you all do, we can cut the cost down, broaden access because of the way we look at it, and really build a system that is spectacular.
Right.
All right, I think we just have time for final words from everyone. Shellye, we'll start with you. Any final pieces of advice for the audience.
Yeah, given the audience of people who are building companies as well as educators, my biggest advice is going to come back to partnership. I'm telling you, there is so much power in working together. I encourage you to find ways to work with universities if you're on the business side, and if you're on the university side, to reach out and pull businesses in. That is where we will have exponential impact.
Personally, I'm extremely bullish about the opportunities in higher education, both from your perspective as companies and from our perspective as institutions. I think together we can really change the course of this country, and we should.
All I would add is Clayton Christensen, rest his soul, before he died, spent time at ASU where we tried to convince him that there was massive opportunity for innovation at the core, not innovation or disruption at the margin. The more the companies that are here and others, the investors that are here, can realize that it is about helping the core institutions to be successful through partnerships rather than somehow this mystical, maniacal, completely false assumption that somehow this sector will be replaced. That's not going to happen. What has to happen is the sector has to be enhanced. It has to be empowered. It has to be technologically invigorated. And that's what once we get into that psychology, help the core to be more innovative, help the core to be more successful, there'll be a lot more money for you all to make and a lot more students for us to teach.
Well, join me in thanking our panelists.
Thank you.